Welcome and hello also from sunny Lisbon. I'm over here in Portugal. It's a sunny morning over here. Clear skies, warm weather, pretty perfect. Yeah, shouldn't probably tell you more about that. Probably all gonna hate me if I continue, but anyway, welcome. I'm gonna start a little bit of background of myself. So like Mirka said, my name is Riku Kokkonen, and basically I'm a serial entrepreneur. Started around 7 businesses, most of them absolute disasters. Definitely no product market fit over there, but a few of them actually have worked out. For 10 years, I actually worked in the music industry as a music composer, music producer, which is funny enough. It's also all about product market fit. So it's a hit or miss game, right? Just like venturing. Throughout these experiences, studying this topic at university, now here at Coventures, basically for the past, say, 13, 14 years, I've been focusing on the hardest, most difficult part of venturing or building new businesses. And that's the start. That's the part when you go from 0 to 1, also known as like art of the start, right? And also like how to go from idea to have that go to that magical rainbow sunshine place of product market fit. But yeah, so today we're going to be focusing on that, and especially on how to get there, how to reach that magical moment of product market fit. Let's start with some definitions over here. So the father of the term is called Mark Andreessen. He's a very famous Silicon Valley VC dude. And in his words, product market fit means being in a good market with a product that can satisfy that market. That's a pretty vague definition. Doesn't really tell much, but that's the father of its term. But if we have a little bit more practical look, what it actually looks like when you hit that magical moment of product market fit, basically 3 points that I have over here. So first of all, you have paying customers that come back for more. So they're recurring customers or repeating customers based on your business model. You have paying customers that come back for more. Second, your customers or paying customers, they're recommending you to others. Third, you can, with reasonable accuracy, predict your growth based on hard data, or you have some solid data, hard data that can show that you have some kind of product market fit over there, some evidence of scalability. What does this look like in the real world? Here's some real world examples. Usually, this is basically the moment when you can raise your first larger funding round, let's say 1 million euros or something like that, right? Also, what this usually looks like is that you have revenue at least in the hundreds of thousands, maybe even 1 million or something like that, but at least in the hundreds of thousands. In some rare cases, you can have like Facebook in the beginning, they have thousands of very active users on their platform, but usually you have to have that revenue at least in the hundreds of thousands. Also, there's some kind of survey tools that you can use, and you ask your customers like questions like how or would you be disappointed, or how disappointed would you be if your product didn't exist anymore? And if half of your customers said we'd be really disappointed, very disappointed, then you have some kind of evidence of product market fit. So there's those kind of surveys also exist. Also, this is important. I want to go through this. So what product market fit is not. First of all, you don't have product market fit if you don't have a product. So this is often what I hear from first-time entrepreneurs. They come to me and they say, yeah, I've talked to my mom and a few friends, and it seems like we have this great idea. It seems like we have product market fit. No, you don't. You don't have product market fit if you don't have a product. Also, the product, it has to be a little bit more established. Can't be just an MVP or some mock-up or something like that. It has to be more established. And also you have to be mindful who are your first customers. If you have 3 customers, your 2 of your friends and your mom, you don't have product market fit yet. It has to be strangers. It has to be recommending it to others. So that is what product market fit is not. To sum it all up in general terms, so what is product market fit? It's the point when you have those recurring or repeating customers, and you have enough data to predict growth. So you have that evidence to prove that scalability and repeatability. There we have some definitions, but let's put all that aside right now and let's focus on why we're really over here. So how to reach that magical rainbow unicorn place of product market fit. And also, why do we still fail so much? Because we fail a lot. Around 90% of the time we fail. Probably heard this. This is a phrase that gets thrown around in the industry, that 90% of all the startups, all the innovations, stuff like that, they fail. And most of them, they fail due to no customer need, AKA no product market fit. And if you look at that failure rate of 90%, you notice that it's a pretty terrible rate for success. I mean, if you think about any other kind of investment decisions, but we can actually bring that percentage down a little bit. But let's start with looking at this kind of, probably like this traditional venturing roadmap. Also called as like an MVP-led approach. So the minimal viable product-led approach. This is basically, it's based on this lean startup method. Probably many of you already know about it. And the idea is that you have a great idea over there, then you start building some kind of quick MVP, quick mock-up. You launch it, it's champagnes and parties, it's all go. You go to the market, you kind of iterate a little bit, you find that product market fit, and then you grow and scale, and then it's sunshines and rainbows. But how this usually works out is that, so you have the idea, so you have some kind of great vision, and you have built some kind of MVP or mock-up, then you launch it, you have that huge launch party, and it's all fun and games. Then you start finding that product market fit, and it's epic fail, right? This is where most of the startups usually fail, right? This is the most common phase where we fail. Why do we still fail so much? Why do we fail so much? I mean, yes, we are probably failing smaller than we did before when we were using these kind of mock-ups or MVPs, but we're still failing a lot. Let's look at some of the problems over here with this model. So first of all, the problem over here is that from the start, after the ideation phase, we focus on execution rather than learning. So if you look at the ideation phase, that's a creative phase, right? It's creative, that's brainstorming, you're coming up with some new ideas and etc. But when you start building that MVP, that's kind of like product building, and then launching, that's all about execution. So ideation phase, that's creative, MVP, launch, that kind of thing, execution. But product market fit, that's all about learning. That's a learning process. You're learning what is your place over there in the market. So we focus on execution rather than learning. That's why we usually like fail over there. Also, we're jumping from idea to solution. So we're jumping from idea solution without validating those like ideas or problems behind that. Also, when we're doing that, we're assuming there's a customer pain point. We're going to the solution, but we're assuming and there's a customer pain point. Also, lastly, when you look at this model, so we have that idea, we built those MVPs, then we do a launch and everything like that. That is the part when we bring the real customer contact point. And that is the part where we get the key learnings, and they come way too late in the process. So basically what I'm trying to say over here is that we should start the systematic learning process way earlier, not after the launch, big launch, everything like that, but actually way earlier. And this causes us to start building our businesses, building our hypotheses on unverified and wrong assumptions. So we kind of like start steering our ship in the wrong direction from the start. And like I said, even though there's MVPs, mock-ups, and then we launch them, they might still take a year or half a year to get there. And these failures are always super painful. All the pivots, it's always hard. So how do we fix this? how do we build products that fit market needs, right? So how do we steer that ship in the right direction from the start? Because we can radically decrease that failure rate from 90%. The top venture builders in the world, top serial entrepreneurs in the world, they can radically decrease this rate from fail rate of 90%. They can actually bring it down to even 30%, 40%, something like that. So half, and even more. So there's a missing piece to this puzzle, right? So what's the missing piece? How to reach product market fit, and what is the missing piece? We call it product market fit discovery. This is kind of an idea to bring a systematic learning process right after the ideation phase. Not when we launch it, when we go to market, but bring those learnings early on in the process. And we start like systematically learning and myth busting our own sweetheart idea from the get-go and start gathering that unbiased real world data, right? So we can build the learnings and steer the ship in the right direction. So what's product market fit discovery? What is it? In other words, it's a systematic method for testing our assumptions, gathering unbiased data, and discovering early evidence of product market fit without a product. It's all about creating a systematic learning process. And I like to think about this way, that you're kind of taking off your businessman or businesswoman hat off. At this phase, you're almost putting like a scientist or like a psychologist hat on. And you go out there into the real world, talking to potential customers and gathering that high quality data and those high quality learnings from real potential customers. This is also known as a evidence-based process for new business creation or for venturing. And so we want to gather that great evidence and build our business hypothesis on top of that and our business model on top of that. So instead of having like a great idea, fantastic vision, and then reverse engineer from there and kind of trickle down all of our own assumptions or all of our own beliefs and biases. Instead of doing that, we gather this great set of quality data and build on top of that. So how do we do this? So how do we gather this reliable and unbiased evidence that we can build our business model and business hypothesis on top of? 1, 2, 3. There's 3 things over here. So this is the product market fit discovery process. First, customer discovery. Second, product discovery. Third, market discovery. In the first phase, we just discover customer problems. That's it. 2, product discovery. We only discover viable solutions for those customer problems. And third, we discover and analyze if there's a scalable market for that solution. It's really simple. Let's take a deep dive into each of these individually. So let's start with this customer discovery process. It's the first thing we do after the ideation phase. So we just focus on what is the customer problem. Usually we do this by conducting around 30 interviews. It can be a little bit less, can be even like a 50 or something like that. But we start conducting these interviews right after the ideation phase. And we're not pitching. This is probably the most important thing. So we're not pitching our idea. When we're talking to these potential customers, we're not even telling them what we're about to do or what our idea is. We're not selling, we're not pitching. We're just asking open-ended questions and we listen. You have to think about yourself as an interviewer. Also, we have to be mindful of who we're actually talking to. So we want to be talking to potential customers and strangers. So get out of the building. We want to be talking to potential customers and strangers. Also note that nothing has been built yet. Not an MVP, not even a mock-up, nothing. We just focus on discovering those customer problems. A few great questions that you can ask during this process when you're doing these interviews is that, what's the hardest thing about your job? You ask that from the potential customer. Or what are the top 3 problems you have right now? or what your organization has right now, or what kind of activities or what kind of jobs are you doing around that problem? And what's the hardest thing about that? What are the pain points around that? That's it. You just ask those kind of questions. And you're just asking help and asking for advice, no pitching. So we want to learn, is our idea an actual problem or a pain point for our potential customers? That's it. And we want to get those unbiased answers, those unbiased learnings. So that's why we're not pitching our idea. Otherwise, we'll just unnecessarily frame the whole discussion. And if you pitch your idea, you're kind of like ruining the whole experience. And you have a really high risk of getting answers that you would want to hear. So people tend to be nice. So they're gonna like give you nice answers back. You won't get the bottom line. So that's customer discovery. Now that we have learned a little bit about the customer problems and their pain points, we can make new interviews. And this time we're just gonna be focused on how could the problem be solved? Great questions to ask over here to get unbiased answers. That we ask the potential customer to describe the problem. We ask what kind of solutions they're using right now to solve the problem. Also that, what are the current solutions missing, right? One great thing to ask too is that you can ask them that if they had an unlimited amount of resources, how would they solve the problem? You get pretty good answers after that. Or then if they could just like snap their fingers, magically snap their fingers and solve the problem, how would it be solved? That's how you get good learnings. And overall, we're just focusing on how they, the customers, would themselves solve the problem. So by asking these open-ended questions, we're kind of creating a technology and solution agnostic approach. So we don't have a solution and then we're running around looking for problems, but the other way around. We want to have a technology and solution agnostic approach. Also, things to keep in mind over here, we're still not pitching our idea. We're not even telling what our idea is, what we're doing. We're just asking for help and advice. And think of yourself still as just as an interviewer. You're not the one who's talking. Lastly, we have market discovery. Now we're just going to gather all that unbiased real world evidence and all those learnings, and we kind of start evaluating the problem, viable solutions, and then we just analyze that. Is there a repeatable and scalable solution for like a small group of customers? Is there like a micro market over there? And who are those people in the micro market? Who are the early adopters? Who are the most evident early adopters over there? And overall, is there evidence? Is there early evidence of product market fit? And if your answer is yes, at this point, this is the point when you can start building like your first mockup or MVP. Only after this. And things you remember, you know how to continue from there. You start small, and also, as this is a business experiment, when you do those MVPs, ask for money. So, what have we done over here? So, first of all, after the ideation phase, we have now applied the systematic learning process and an evidence-based approach to venture building. We call it product market fit discovery. And this can pretty radically decrease that risk you have for no product market fit later in the venturing process, right? And you can steer that ship in the right direction from the start and minimize those risks for painful pivots. Also, in addition, one great thing about this process is that you can start gathering those initial KPIs from the get-go. Let's say you do those 30 interviews, 15 of them have the same problems, same kind of solutions, and let's say 3 of them in the end, they're willing to pay for that solution, for that quick mock-up and stuff like that. So you know that from the total addressable market, 10%, that 10% is your micro market, those early adopters. So you can start gathering those initial KPIs from the get-go. So much easier to start doing your pitch deck and building up that phase if you've done this the right way. So key learnings over here. This is an evidence-based approach, right? And we start this discovery phase right after the ideation phase. We gather those learnings from the get-go. And we also, by doing this, we create like an unbiased learning process. We're kind of like myth busting our own sweetheart ideas, and we can really decrease that risk when venturing. And also, like I said, we're gathering those KPIs from the get-go, and we're not building that growth strategy and go-to-market strategy based on hopes and dreams, but on actual evidence. We start building the whole thing on top of that, right? And last, I want to finish off with this. It's also kind of like note to self, right? So even though this sounds really simple, I know probably some of you are over there like, duh, I mean, it sounds so simple, but this is really easy to forget because this is not an intuitive approach. Intuitively, you start talking to your friends, your trusted colleagues, family even, and get really biased feedback from there. I mean, it's all right to talk to these people and you get energy and get all pumped up from there, but you have to take those learnings and put them aside. It's hard and it's uncomfortable and it's awkward to get out of the building and start talking to those customers first. And testing your own assumptions in the real world, because you'll notice that most of your ideas, even your best ideas, like that $1 billion idea that you have in the middle of the night, when you start talking to those actual customers in the first phase of the product market fit discovery, during that customer discovery phase, you'll notice that nobody cares about that idea. They don't really have that problem. So that's why we do this first. Also, I don't like to think about this like as a business method or anything like that and think about it that way. It's more just about like a science-led approach, or even like you have like a psychologist hat on, because you're just asking good questions and getting those unbiased, like qualitative data from the real world. But overall, this way you can radically decrease that risk for failure, and you can reach that happy place of product market fit. Thank you very much.